Mia sat on the edge of the couch, scrolling through her phone absent-mindedly. The late afternoon sun streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow over the apartment. It was the kind of evening that felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. She glanced at David, who was sitting across from her, immersed in a law journal. His focus never seemed to waver, his posture always straight, his demeanor always serious. He was everything she had ever wanted: intelligent, kind, reliable. David was the kind of man who made you feel safe, who had a plan for everything, who could navigate the complexities of life with the same precision he applied to his legal work. But lately, Mia had started to feel a small itch at the back of her mind. It was nothing obvious, just a subtle unease that seemed to grow as the days passed. Her relationship with David was solid, unshakable even, yet something about it felt routine. They had been together for over 2 years, and though they still shared quiet moments and laughter, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were stuck in a loop, repeating the same patterns day in and day out. The spark that once ignited their connection now flickered dimly in the background. She didn't dare bring it up to David. He would only brush it off, telling her she was overthinking. And maybe she was. Maybe it was just the monotony of life that had her thinking there was something more to it. Maybe she needed a change of scenery, something to shake up the routine. The bell at the door startled her from her thoughts. She looked at David, who was already standing. "I'll get it," he said, heading for the door. Mia's eyes followed him, but before she could refocus on her phone, the sound of a deep voice drifted through the hallway. "Hey there, I'm your new neighbor, Alex, right next door." She didn't catch the rest of the conversation, but curiosity stirred in her. She stood up, walking toward the hallway as David chuckled. She knew her boyfriend's friendly, warm nature. It was one of the things she loved most about him. But there was something about the way Alex's voice carried, with a hint of mystery, that tugged at her attention. When she turned the corner, she saw him. Alex was standing in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell messily over his forehead. He gave her a polite smile, his green eyes bright yet unreadable. Mia felt her heart beat a little faster, an unfamiliar flutter in her chest. There was something magnetic about him, though she couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. "I'm Alex," he said, extending his hand. "I just moved in." Mia shook his hand, her fingers brushing against his. The touch was brief, but something about it lingered in her mind longer than it should have. "Well, it's nice to meet you," she said, forcing a smile, though her pulse had quickened. "I'm Mia. This is David." She gestured to her boyfriend, who was still standing at the door with his friendly grin. "We're happy to have you around," David added, offering a firm handshake. "Thanks," Alex replied, still with that enigmatic smile. "I'm sure we'll get along." After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Alex excused himself, disappearing into his apartment next door. David, still smiling, turned back to Mia. "What do you think? Seems like a good guy." Mia nodded, but as she looked at David, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Her pulse was still racing, and the thought of Alex lingered in her mind far more than it should have. It was as though her body had reacted to something, some unknown force she couldn't explain. David didn't seem to notice, already turning back to his journal. But Mia couldn't ignore the strange, unshakable feeling that had settled deep within her. A feeling that this was the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand. The days passed, and Mia's life continued as usual, until the encounters with Alex became more frequent. It wasn't anything overt, nothing that David would notice. But Mia started to see him around the building more often. It wasn't just the occasional glimpse in the hallway or an awkward elevator ride. It was the subtle things. She'd find herself running into him at the local cafe, or crossing paths on her way to the gym. At first it was just coincidence, or at least that's what she told herself. But with each interaction, something inside her stirred. Alex was different from anyone she had ever met. He wasn't the type to make small talk about the weather or ask about her day in the same casual manner as David did. No, Alex made her feel as though she was the only person in the room when he spoke to her, his attention laser-focused on her, his questions more personal than she expected. She found herself answering him more honestly than she had ever answered anyone, even David. The magnetic pull she felt toward him was confusing. It wasn't just physical, though that was certainly part of it. It was something deeper, a connection that she couldn't explain. She couldn't help but think about him when she was alone, a strange unease settling in her stomach whenever she realized how often his face appeared in her thoughts. One afternoon, as Mia was leaving the building, she saw him standing outside, leaning against the side of the building, a cigarette in hand. He looked up when he heard the door open. "Hey, Mia." He greeted her with a smile that seemed too knowing. "Hey," she replied, her voice sounding a little too shaky for her liking. She hesitated for a moment before stepping out onto the sidewalk. "Just enjoying the fresh air," Alex said, flicking the cigarette to the ground and grinding it out with his boot. "It's nice to get out of the apartment sometimes." Mia nodded, feeling awkward as she tried to figure out why she was so drawn to him. It was a strange tension, as though something was simmering beneath the surface that neither of them had acknowledged. They stood there in silence for a moment, and Mia felt the strange pressure in her chest, like she was waiting for something. She wanted to speak, but her mind couldn't settle on the right words. Why did she feel so unsettled when Alex was around? "You okay?" Alex asked, his voice gentle, his eyes locking with hers. The concern in his voice felt genuine, and it made her heart skip a beat. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind, I guess. Anything I can do to help?" Alex's tone was light, but there was something in his gaze that made Mia hesitate. She could feel the unspoken question hanging between them, and for a split second, she considered telling him the truth, how she wasn't sure what was happening to her, how her thoughts were becoming increasingly consumed by him. But instead, she shook her head. "No, I'm just overthinking things." Alex's lips quirked up into a half smile. "Well, sometimes it's good to have a distraction," he said, his voice dropping slightly. "If you ever need one, you know where to find me." Mia's heart raced again. She could feel her pulse pounding in her ears as his words lingered in the air between them. There was something almost daring in his invitation, and despite her better judgment, she felt the pull to take him up on it, to step into the unknown, to let herself give in to the strange attraction that seemed to grow with every encounter. But before she could respond, the door to the building opened, and David appeared, his expression warm as he waved at her. "Hey, babe, you ready to go?" Mia felt the weight of his gaze on her, and the moment was gone. Alex gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod, and she turned to walk towards David, feeling like she was leaving something behind, a part of herself that she didn't understand. That evening, Mia tried to push the thoughts of Alex from her mind. She and David cooked dinner together, a routine they both enjoyed. Yet, as they ate, her thoughts kept drifting back to the brief exchange outside. She had tried to tell herself that it was nothing, just a fleeting moment, but deep down, she knew it wasn't. She had never felt like this before. David, ever the attentive boyfriend, noticed the distance in her eyes. "You okay?" he asked softly, reaching across the table to take her hand. Mia smiled, trying to shake off the lingering feelings. "Yeah, just tired. Work's been a lot lately." David nodded, squeezing her hand. "Well, if you ever need a break, we can take a weekend away. Just the two of us. How does that sound?" Mia nodded, grateful for his concern. "That sounds nice." But as she smiled at him, she couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt in her chest. It wasn't that she didn't love David. She did. But something inside her was starting to shift. The connection she had with Alex was undeniable, and no matter how hard she tried to ignore it, she couldn't shake the feeling that this attraction was only the beginning. The days continued to blur together, and Mia tried to focus on her life with David. She threw herself into work, into the routines they had built. But every time she saw Alex, That strange connection would stir inside her once more. It was like a spark that refused to be extinguished, no matter how much she tried to ignore it. She found herself glancing at his apartment window from hers, wondering if he was home, wondering what he was doing. The tension between her feelings for David and the growing attraction to Alex had begun to feel like a weight pressing on her chest. She felt guilty, but she also couldn't deny the pull toward Alex, something she had never experienced before. The way he looked at her made her feel seen, understood, in a way that even David, who had always been so present, hadn't been able to do in recent months. One evening, after a long day at work, Mia was walking home when she noticed Alex standing outside his apartment building, leaning casually against the wall with a book in his hand. She hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to keep walking or to stop. She was already running late to meet David, but something in her made her slow down, her feet carrying her in his direction. "Mia." Alex greeted her when he saw her, his voice warm as always, his eyes lighting up at the sight of her. "Hey, Alex," she replied, a little breathless from the unexpected encounter. "You look like you've had a long day," he said, his tone filled with genuine concern. "Want to grab a coffee? I know a place around the corner." Mia felt a flash of hesitation. She could already hear David's voice in her head, questioning where she was, why she hadn't been in touch. But the truth was, she wasn't sure why she was hesitating. There was something in Alex's offer, something that made her want to be with him, to sit down and talk. It felt like she had spent so long hiding parts of herself, and somehow, in Alex's presence, those parts felt like they could be free. I don't know," she said, glancing at her watch. "I was supposed to meet David soon." Alex nodded, but there was no disappointment in his eyes. "I get it," he said easily. "Rain check then? I'm here if you change your mind." Mia hesitated again, then nodded. "Okay, I'll keep that in mind." She forced a smile, before turning to walk away, her mind a whirlwind of confusion. The next few days passed in a blur. Mia tried to focus on her relationship with David, but it was hard. Every time she looked at him, all she could see was the distance between them, the growing gap that she couldn't bridge. The love was still there, but it felt like something was missing. She didn't know what it was, but she knew it was there, quietly pushing her toward Alex. One evening, after a tense dinner where they barely spoke, Mia felt the weight of the silence. She couldn't stand it any longer. She needed to talk to someone, to voice the confusion swirling inside her. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" David asked, looking up from his phone. "I just need some air," Mia said, her voice tight, betraying the emotions she was struggling to control. "I'll be back soon." She left the apartment and walked down the hallway, the quiet hum of the building around her. When she stepped outside, she was met with the cold night air. She took a deep breath, hoping it would clear her mind. But as she turned the corner, her heart skipped a beat when she saw Alex standing outside, as if waiting for her. "I was hoping I'd run into you," Alex said with a soft smile, his tone low, as though he had been waiting for this moment too. Mia stopped in her tracks, her breath catching in her throat. She had told herself she would distance herself from him, but here he was, right in front of her, and the pull was undeniable. She could feel the tension in the air, a spark ready to catch fire. "I didn't know where else to go," Mia confessed, her voice shaking slightly. I've been so confused lately." Alex's eyes softened, and he stepped closer. "You don't have to explain everything, Mia, but you can talk to me if you need to." She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding. And then, before she could stop herself, she found the words tumbling out. "I don't know what's happening to me. I'm with David, and I love him, but there's something about you. Something I can't ignore. I feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions, and I don't know what to do." Alex's gaze never wavered, and he took a step closer, closing the distance between them. "You're not alone in this," he said softly. "I feel it too." Mia's heart raced, her breath coming faster. She wanted to pull away, to stop herself from crossing a line she knew she shouldn't. But instead, she stayed rooted in place, her body betraying her. Alex's hand reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch was soft, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. "It's okay," he murmured. "You don't have to decide anything right now, but whatever you're feeling, I'm here." In that moment, Mia realized how much she had been holding back, how much she had denied herself the chance to feel alive, to embrace what her heart was telling her. And in Alex's presence, she felt that possibility. She didn't have the answers, but she knew she had to find them. The days following that night felt like they had dragged on forever. Mia's mind was a whirlwind, constantly flipping between the comfort and security she had with David, and the exhilarating, yet terrifying emotions that Alex had awakened in her. It was a battle that waged within her, each side pulling her in a different direction, each side holding a piece of her heart. David noticed the change in Mia, the distance between them that seemed to grow with each passing day. He was no fool. He could see the way she hesitated, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. He had always known her well, and now he was seeing the signs of someone who was torn. It hurt him more than he was willing to admit, but he didn't know how to fix it. Mia had tried to ignore the way she felt, to focus on the life she had built with David, but every time she was near Alex, it felt like her world shifted. She couldn't explain it, but the connection was undeniable. It wasn't just attraction, it was something deeper, something that made her feel like she was discovering parts of herself she had kept hidden for so long. One afternoon, as Mia sat in her apartment, staring out the window, she received a message from Alex. It was simple, just an invitation to meet up. "I've been thinking about our conversation," the text read. "Maybe we should talk more. No pressure. Just talk." Her heart skipped a beat. She had been trying to avoid him, trying to make sense of her emotions. But now, here he was, extending the olive branch, asking for something that she wasn't sure she could give. Yet she found herself staring at the message for longer than she should have. She knew what it meant. She knew what she was about to decide. She typed out a response. "Okay, where do you want to meet?" Minutes later, she was getting ready to leave. As she walked out of her apartment, she couldn't help but wonder what she was doing. Why was she walking toward Alex? Why was she even considering stepping away from David, the man she had built her life with? But as she stepped into the cool evening air, she knew the answer. She needed to find out what was missing. She needed to understand why Alex had stirred something inside her that had been dormant for so long. And perhaps, just perhaps, she needed to confront the truth about her feelings, no matter how painful it might be. When she arrived at the cafe, Alex was already there, sitting at a corner table, a cup of coffee in front of him. His expression softened when he saw her, and for a moment, the weight of the world seemed to disappear. There was just them, the quiet hum of the cafe, and the undeniable tension between them. "Hey," Mia said, sitting down across from him. Her voice was softer than usual, like the calm before a storm. "Hey," Alex replied, his voice low. He studied her for a moment, his gaze intense, almost searching. "You okay?" Mia paused, considering the question. Was she okay? She didn't know. Everything felt like it was unraveling. But maybe that was what needed to happen. "I don't know," she admitted. "I feel lost, torn between two worlds." Alex nodded, his expression understanding. "I get it. But I need you to know something, Mia. I'm not here to pressure you. I'm not asking you to make any decisions right now. I just want you to know that whatever you feel, it's okay." His words were like a balm to her wounded soul. She had been carrying this weight, this sense of guilt for even considering the possibility of being with him. But here he was, offering her the space to breathe, to feel. She realized in that moment how much she needed that. How much she needed someone who didn't judge her for the mess she was in. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I don't know what's going on inside me, but I can't pretend anymore. I'm not sure if I'm ready to let go of what I have with David, but I also can't ignore what I feel for you." Alex reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. His touch was warm, steady, and reassuring. "I'm not asking you to make any decisions today," he said. "I'm not asking you to walk away from David. I'm just asking you to be honest with yourself. That's all." Mia's heart raced as she looked into his eyes. She knew what she had to do. She had to face the truth. She couldn't keep running from her feelings, from the connection that was too strong to deny. "I don't know where this will lead, Alex," Mia said softly, squeezing his hand. "But I can't pretend anymore. I need to figure this out. For myself." Alex smiled, a soft, understanding smile that seemed to say everything. "That's all I'm asking for." As Mia left the cafe, she felt lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She didn't have all the answers, but she was finally being honest with herself. And maybe that was enough, for now.